I'm the most annoying guy on set because I'm saying, excuse me, you do realize that this should be happening and they wouldn't do that, and you haven't read this, that means this would be impossible. And everyone's just going, Henry, just shut up and do the thing. And I'm like, I don't want to do the thing because he wouldn't do it this way, and he can do this. The first thing he said to me was, I didn't write this, it's not my fault. This isn't me.
I know that he watches the episodes, I know that he likes them, but he does not actually want to be a day-to-day part of the process.
Just coming to the set and reading and giving notes. Listen, I like it, but maybe, just maybe, we could shift it a little bit here or there.
Never.
Maybe I gave them some ideas, but they never listened to me. They never listened.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million enthusiasts of the find out portion of the fuck around and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. Netflix, in their infinite wisdom, decided to remind the world that their version of The Witcher still exists. And I can hear most of you now asking, it does? Yes, except this time, it's not going to feature Henry Cavill as a guest star in his own show surrounded by a bunch of fanfic feminist gobbledygook. Now we have Liam Hemsworth taking over for Henry Cavill as a guest star in his own show surrounded by a bunch of fanfic feminist gobbledygook. And it turns out this romantasy fanfic feminist gobbledygook was very expensive. We have learned very recently that this show cost Netflix over $500 million. Now, to be fair, you could probably find $500 million in change in Ted Sarandos's casting couch, but it's still a very expensive embarrassment and one that was easily avoidable. If you feel like not a lot of people have been talking about The Witcher, it's because they haven't since Henry Cavill left, including Netflix, who decided to drop their first clip late at night on a Saturday. And the reactions to this clip went down about as well as you would think. But before we get to that, let's take a little trip down memory, or in this case, Mammory Lane. Because as you know, the ladies of Hollywood want and deserve accolades for their successes, but they often seem to avoid the accountability for their failures, and I'm here for equality because I think women can fuck up just as much as men, because without a doubt, The Witcher was ruined by a woman. The Witcher premiered on December 20th, 2019, and while being mostly panned by critics, it was generally loved by audiences. Hell, I even liked it, giving it a 7 out of 10, and it was generally considered a success. And because it was epic fantasy, and it also premiered the same year as the disastrous Season 8, some were calling it the heir apparent to Game of Thrones.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
And that was despite all the concerns many Witcher fans had prior to Season 1 with the hiring of very questionable writers. But as they say, hindsight is 20/20, and I would chalk up most of the success of Season 1 to Henry Cavill. But unfortunately, it was Lauren Hisrich who took all the credit and saw the success of Season 1 as a man date, or in this case, a woman date, who went on to contort and vandalize the lore from the games and the books to fit something from her worldview, a Witcher for a modern audience. And that audience was the person she stares at in the mirror every day. The first real signs of trouble came from this little soundbite that turned out to be a dire warning from Henry Cavill prior to Season 2.
The showrunner has a particular vision for the show and for the characters in the show. And I don't know if you've read the books, but the books, certainly the first few, there's very much from a Geralt perspective. And so with the shift of the showrunner's vision, where it's an ensemble cast more so than a singular lead, and the perspective is shifted to be almost more of a Cirilla Yennefer perspective. And so it's about finding my character's place within that vision, and making sure that I do everything I can to be as faithful to the source material as possible that I can be within the structure set out for me.
And lo and behold, Season 2 came out, butchering the lore of the book. It was based on blood of elves, and there was an unsurprising dramatic loss in viewership. After Season 2, we would learn what led to this disaster and future disasters from former writer and producer Beau DeMayo, who was also the former writer and producer of X-Men 97, who is currently ripping Kevin Feige on The Daily. DeMayo said, "I've been on a show, namely Witcher, where some of the writers actively dislike the books and games, even actively mocking the source material," DeMayo explained. It's a recipe for disaster and bad for morale, and really bad for your show. Lauren Hissrich would even bitch openly about Henry's commitment to the lore. And Bo wasn't the only one. There's also the writer of The Witcher, Andrzej Sapkowski, saying this.
Maybe I gave them some ideas, but they never listened. They never listened.
Then in October 2022, Henry announced via Instagram that he was leaving the show. And who could blame him? Because a couple of months after that, Netflix decided to release The Witcher prequel, Blood Origin, where they departed from the lore just a little bit and took the formidable, mighty, evil Aridin, the leader of the Wild Hunt, and turned him into a spurned, disgruntled gay man, making Blood Origin a good candidate to be the worst fantasy series in a year where they released Willow and the Rings of Power. And that was followed by Witcher Season 3, where Henry Cavill is in only 1/3 of his own series. Unsurprisingly, viewership dropped again from Season 2 to Season 3, which was supposed to be based on Andrzej Sapkowski's book A Time for Contempt, but it became crystal clear that Lauren Hissrich had contempt for the lore, the audience, and Henry Cavill. And as I've said before, Henry needs to fire his agent because he's been used as the bait and switch quite a bit, from The Witcher to Enola Holmes to Argyle. And while The Witcher died when Henry Cavill left, let's be real, the mortal wound started in Season 2. And that's where obviously Netflix made its biggest mistake. Instead of siding with Henry Cavill and, I don't know, hiring new writers, they stuck with Lauren Hissrich and her feminists. And now the heir apparent to Game of Thrones that was planned for 7 seasons was reduced to 5 and canceled. And the last 2 seasons are being filmed back to back, making them totally 2 seasons and not just one split up. No word yet on episode count, and no word yet on how much the budget was reduced, but considering this clip that they just decided to release in the middle of the night, it looks like a lot. And of course, the responses are what you would think, including but not limited to people saying Liam Hemsworth is the Temu Witcher. But of course, Elric fans will say The Witcher is Temu Elric. Again, this was a clip, not a fan film, released at about 8 p.m. Eastern on a Saturday night, on a weekend dominated by the very sad news of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, rest in peace. And considering during Netflix's big Ta-Dum presentation where they showcase all the content coming out over the next couple of years and they didn't speak a single word or show a single frame from The Witcher, it looks like to you they're trying to bury this. I would agree, and can you blame them? I mean, admittedly, it looks like a very expensive fan film, but a fan film nonetheless, and poor Liam Hemsworth. You know, you and Henry both need to fire your agents. I guess the good news is, based on precedent, Liam's only going to be in about 1/3 of his own series, so we won't have much work to do other than running around with a gay Yasker while they follow the main character of the series, Yennefer, in search of the girl who's the key to everything, Ciri.
Princess Cyrilla! Ciri!
Ciri! Where's the girl?
Where's Ciri? He's looking for Ciri. I need to find Ciri. Where is Cyrilla? Have you seen Cyrilla?
Ciri! Ciri!
Where are you, Ciri?
Ciri, are you here? We're looking for Ciri.
Where's Ciri?
And occasionally fighting a monster that's some variation of a woman who's been subjugated or enslaved by an evil man, so we should feel really bad when she's slaughtered. And ultimately, the Wild Hunt will just be Aridin looking for a new boyfriend. And yes, once that trailer was dropped late Saturday night on YouTube and Twitter, the responses were unsurprising. Almost universal support for Henry Cavill, people claiming they're just not going to watch this show, and to be fair, a lot of sympathy for Liam Hemsworth. And I have to echo the sentiments from the first comment I see. Gotta respect them for keeping the comment section open. I also have to agree with this one. Remember, guys, don't blame Liam, blame the producers and Lauren Hissrich. Another comment says, you had the chance to make a show that could rival Game of Thrones in its heyday. All you had to do was respect the source material and cast characters who actually look like those described in the books. Instead, you chose to inject unnecessary politics into a great series, and your contempt for the story drove away one of the best actors in the business. And now The Witcher doesn't even rival Game of Thrones at its low point. Liam pulling the heart out of the Wraith is quite symbolic of what the producers did to the show quite some time ago. Producers are like my ex, never admit their mistakes and never know when to give up. If Netflix stuck to the books like Henry tried to, they'd be printing money like crazy. And that, my friend, is the same story for a lot of beloved stories and intellectual properties, including Star Wars, which does have something in common with The Witcher. It was ruined by a woman too. And the other thing that wasn't very surprising was the ratio and the very tepid response. It's only sitting at 1.5 million views, which is great for a lot of channels, but this is Netflix with 31.7 million subscribers. I guess the most somewhat surprising news is how much The Witcher has cost, because Forbes reported Netflix revealed it's $568 million. That's right, Netflix has revealed that it has spent $568 million on the sword and sorcery series The Witcher, making it one of the most expensive shows of all time. Forbes continues, the gamble has paid off handsomely.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
For the streamer, as The Witcher is one of the most successful shows, having been viewed for more than 1.2 billion hours. Yeah, because nothing says success like losing the star of your show over the creative direction, having former writers of the show call it out, having the writer of the source material call the show out, and almost the entire audience calling you out and then abandoning you. Let's not forget The Witcher Season 3 premiere was down 15% from The Witcher Season 2 premiere, but the worst news is by the time they got to episode 5 of Season 3, 60% of the audience was gone. And just to pile on a little bit more, let's remind Netflix that they chose the producers of this show over Henry Cavill, and the last thing they've put out has been Blood Origin and The Witcher Season 3, which, according to Rotten Tomatoes, got 13% and 19% audience scores respectively.
The numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you.
And it gets worse. Thanks to The Witcher being filmed in the UK, Forbes was indeed able to figure out how much it cost. And I'm rounding up here. It was $568 million, but there was about $97 million in tax credits, making it $459 million. But the most surprising thing, and no, it's not that season 4 budget, but we'll get to that, is Blood Origin, which was $78 million after a tax credit from $95 million, making it $29 million per episode, making each episode 2 Godzilla -1s and the entire season 8 Godzilla -1s. Now, if you're looking at that $42 million and thinking Netflix maybe got smart and just cut the budget, you'd be wrong. These filings only go up to December of 2023, meaning that's the amount Netflix has spent before they even started shooting. The lesson here, there was a time in Hollywood where you can be an insufferable feminist hack writer taking male-oriented epic fantasy and turning it into your own personal romantasy fanfic and get paid a lot doing it. And the best thing about being a virtue signal hire, even to this day with rare exceptions, they can't fire you. But you really showed us toxic fans Netflix is willing to spend upwards of $300 million more, making the total price of The Witcher close to $750 million, all to save face. That'll teach us you'll lose more money than we can possibly imagine. I sure hope the writers of this show, along with the writers of Wheel of Time and Willow and Blood Origin and soon to be Rings of Power, save your money. Because the bad news is you won't have any more epic fantasy to destroy, because the good news is there's no more epic fantasy to destroy. I said this in my Red Sonja video, and I'll repeat it here. There was a time I would have loved to have seen Conan or Elric adapted. That time is long gone. Elric won't get adapted because it's too much like The Witcher and Game of Thrones, because The Witcher and Game of Thrones ripped it off. And Conan won't get adapted because it's pure 100% unadulterated toxic masculinity in all the best ways. Watch tomorrow, Amazon will announce Phoebe Waller-Bridge is developing a Conan show. I jest, but that's the absolute state of epic fantasy in publishing, TV, and film. Epic fantasy is not romantasy. Surprisingly enough, a bunch of dudes don't want to watch some sword and sorcery where a bunch of lesbians sit around and talk about their feelings. Other stuff, well, that's different, but leave it to modern Hollywood to make lesbians boring. They better hope some content creators at least take a shot at roasting the show, because they'll be the only ones watching. And I think some congratulations are in order for Lauren Fulla Schmidt-Hissrich and her writers for proving one absolute truth. The worst thing to happen to storytelling in the last century is fanfic. And I guess we have to congratulate Netflix, not for spending hundreds of millions of dollars to make $0, but doing what they set out to do. They wanted to unite the Witcher book fans, the Witcher game fans, and the Henry Cavill fans. And they've done that. They hate and mock your show equally, and God knows in these dark times we need a little unity and something to laugh at.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.